All right, guys, welcome to the Digital Barbell podcast. Thank you so much for being here. I'm Jonathan. This is my wife, Blakely. We own Digital Barbell. That's what you're watching here. We put out 2 podcasts every single week. And more importantly than the podcast, we are an online training and nutrition company helping people all over the globe get in shape, lose fat, build muscle, build their endurance, have longevity. Did I miss anything? You're just laughing away over there.
I never know what you're going to say.
I don't either. If you're watching this on YouTube, we both got our matching DGTL.
I was wearing this first.
I was wearing a CrossFit shirt. I'm like, I can't wear a CrossFit shirt on our podcast. I got to represent our brand. So.
I love these shirts.
Me too.
I can't wait till we can reorder and get more.
She's washing it every day.
I have 2, and I just like... I have to do laundry every other day because this is all I want to wear.
I like it.
They're super thin. They're just like so comfortable to wear. Mm-hmm. And like you can throw them on with jeans. You can throw them on with jean shorts. You can throw them on with your workout pants. They're perfect.
Life is good.
And trademark.
We've got a Q&A episode for you today. We had some clients send in some questions. We got some questions off the gram. And we got a sponsor for the episode before we get into the questions. We are sponsored by Fireworks. Happy 4th of July, everybody. Hope you've got some good fun plans with your friends and family. Be safe. Don't blow anything off. There's always those horror stories that you hear about.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
What is your most nostalgic firework that comes to mind, like growing up? Yeah. I have a lot of nostalgia around certain kinds of fireworks that my parents would let me, participate in.
Yeah.
What about you?
Well, I guess like the common kid one is like sparklers. You always just like, you get to do the sparklers.
Yeah.
I don't really like to be around like the setting off of, I find like watching fireworks, but I've never been like, oh, I want to set off this firework. They're terrifying me.
I can't even remember you ever like reaching in to light one.
No. I think as a kid, like we used to live outside the city limits and we would get some. And I remember like, we set off one of those ones that like spun and it like hit the neighbor's window. I mean, this is why you shouldn't do these things like out in a neighborhood, even if you are allowed to.
Is the burn ban off here? Are we allowed to set them off?
Yeah. Yeah. The last 2 years, it's been a burn ban here. So this year, get ready. It's going to be loud. I bet it's going to start tonight. Today's the 3rd. That's when we're recording this.
The dogs are going to go nuts.
Our dogs don't really care.
Yeah, but in general.
But I do have. I remember the funniest story. I was just looking through some pictures of the past years, and we usually go over to my aunt and uncle's house. They live out in the country, and like huge like party and fireworks and stuff like that. And all the men were like setting up. I mean, they had a truck. With a platform built to, I mean, they were doing like a legit like fireworks shows. Like it was called like the Backyard Hero Specials.
Probably
they purchased
$1,000 worth of stuff.
Anyway, they had all of the fireworks up on this like platform they built. Mm-hmm. Not all of them, but like the whole first set. And somehow like they were messing around with it and it tipped over and it shot forward and Jonathan just happened to be recording and it looked like a war scene. Like all the guys were like ducking, like diving and rolling out of the way. The fireworks came forward toward them and he got it all on video. Like now looking back, it's hilarious, but it was terrifying because it's like everything's shooting like ground level versus up.
I think after it all died down, they just looked at each other and were like, are we okay?
I remember in the videos, are we okay?
Are we okay?
Everyone okay?
Everybody accounted for?
I
have a lot of nostalgia around a few different ones. The little packet you get that has some sawdust in it and then has those white tissue paper
or you throw them down,
twisted up things.
Yeah, those are fun. Those all do.
Except when your friend
what are they called?
Like poppers, something like that, and throw them at your friend's feet and make them all nervous. And then those stupid little black things that you set on the ground and you light them, and they don't really do anything except like kind of move around. They look like worms or something, and they leave a giant stain on your driveway. I remember messing with those a lot as a kid. And then I think my favorite, I wasn't allowed to use them at the time, were bottle rockets because you can really like shoot those off in a direction that you want.
And when we had some here a couple of years ago, you had a little truck, like a truck one, like tank, and you set the tank and it's supposed to like drive down the road.
Yeah.
We have some funny stuff.
As soon as we finish recording this, we got to go into our fireworks stash.
Yeah, make sure we have enough.
Might have to make a run to the store.
Make sure we need to make, because we're having a bunch of kids come over. We need those you throw down.
Yeah,
the kids can do those.
I'm pretty sure we're out of snappers.
Those are fun.
Poppers right now.
I probably snapped them all last year.
Okay, well let's get into this Q&A. Let's get this thing rolling. You want to read the first one? This came in from one of our clients.
What am I looking at here?
Up here up top. This is English. These are words.
Well, y'all see the way he makes notes. There's some things bolded. There's some things highlighted, but in black.
It's hieroglyphics.
It is all different kind of fonts, all different size fonts. It's an abomination on this page. I've never seen anything like this. All right. How do I know I'm at a good body weight for me? I feel good and definitely have had a shift in mindset toward building muscle rather than fat loss, but sometimes I still get stuck in the mindset that I need to lose weight.
Yeah. So this was a female, and I asked her a couple follow-up questions just to get some context. So let's give the listener a little bit of context so they know why we give the advice that we can. Long story short is she gained a significant amount of weight, and then she lost a significant amount of weight. How's that for detail? Mm-hmm. I'm talking like she lost like 75 pounds. And then about 2 years ago, she regained about 10 of the pounds. And then since she's been doing training with us, she's lost 10 pounds since then. Okay. So she's kind of in this place where she's made tons of progress, regressed a little, regained a little, and just kind of like, remembering what she felt like at a lighter weight and wondering, do I need to get back to that? Was I happier there? Was I healthier there? So I think this is a super common thing because we can't talk about this without talking a little bit about just the relationship between and the difference between body weight and body composition.
Yes.
In general, we're pretty much anti having a goal weight, and we prefer that people chase health, confidence, ability, and an ideal body composition.
Yes.
So that just means the relationship between how much fat and how much muscle you have. And she's already making that shift in her mind because she's saying that she feels good. Her mindset is that she wants to continue to get stronger. You coach her, and her strength and ability is just like off the charts. Looking forward to having her on an episode of 5 Minutes with to talk about that progress. But she's not obsessing about losing weight because she knows her performance is great. Her muscle strength and size and definition and all that stuff is great, but she still have those feelings creep back in. And I think that's completely normal. I just want to also talk about another measure of progress other than just your weight and what you see in your body composition is basically something that ties to what your health and your chronic disease risk is, and it's your waist circumference measurement. Because they've done research on different waist circumferences and where your risk goes from a severe risk of high blood pressure, type 2 diabetes, heart disease, where it comes down to just an elevated risk and where you're at, the lowest risk possible. So let's talk about what kind of those cutoffs are for both.
That's a great idea. Before you talk about those, tell where you actually would measure this, because I think that's an important piece.
Okay, so the most shortcut way to do this is to measure about 1 inch above your belly button.
Above your belly button.
Because everybody's sections are proportioned differently. Another way to do it a little more accurately is to find where the top of your hip bones are. I don't mean like the part in the front where you're feeling that little bone pop out. I'm talking about if you go to the sides, and remember the old anatomy chart where you see the curves on the top of your hip bones?
Top of those.
If you can find where the top of your hip bones are and then come around to the front, that's where you want to take your waist measurement.
But that's, for me, I feel like that's below my belly button. Are you sure?
Yeah, for me, it's above my belly button.
Interesting.
So yeah, there you go. Watch me. I'm coming around. Boom, I'm 1 inch above my belly button right there.
So like right here, hips.
Let me feel your hip bone. I think it's more like up here. Come around to the front. Yeah, you're lower than your belly button. Yeah. So that's where you should measure from.
Interesting.
The top of your hip bones. Anyway, so that's where we're getting this waist circumference measurement from. All right, so let's talk about where we want to be on these waist circumference measurements to get us at the lowest possible risk for chronic disease. All right, for males, we want to be under 37 inches. If we're at 37, we're in the increased risk category. And if we're above 40 inches on the waist circumference, we're at the substantially increased risk. So that's where we want to be. For females, we want to be under 31.5 to be in the lowest risk category. If we're between 31.5 and 35, we're in the increased risk category. And anything above 35 is in the substantially increased risk category. So I would encourage this person to take their waist measurement and see where they're at as an objective way to see, like, do I, for my health, need to continue to lose fat, regardless of the other factors that are going on from the mindset perspective.
So then outside of looking at your waist measurement, I think also making sure that we know, like, what is our resting heart rate, what is our blood pressure, just having an eye on some of our health markers. I think that's going to be, because like we said, first and foremost going after longevity and health. So that's if we're checking our waist, if we're checking our resting heart rate, if we're checking our blood pressure, these are the things we need to be keeping an eye on. Yeah. And then we can go into like, how do we feel in the things that we do? Like, what are our abilities? Yeah. How do we feel in clothes? Going into all those specifics.
Yeah, I think there's the mindset side of things, and like, do you have limitations in your life at the body weight that you're at? Because if you're just picturing that your life is necessarily going to be better or things are going to be different if you lose another 10 or 15 pounds, maybe you will, maybe you won't. Are you really in a place where you have no limitations at the body weight that you're at now? Physically, like you're able to enjoy all the activities that you want to do. You have energy to do all the fun stuff in life, and moving the needle another 10 or 15 pounds, assuming that all your health markers are in place, really isn't going to make that much of a difference. Because you already know the sacrifice that it takes to lose weight because you lost an amazing amount. So, and for most people, losing the final amount of weight that they want to, regardless of what the number that they are trying to get to is, it takes a different level of sacrifice to get there. So think about the trade-offs that it might take to lose that final 10 or 15 pounds, if that's the number that you have in mind, and ask yourself, like, is the lifestyle changes that I'm going to have to make, is the attention to detail I'm going to have to pay to my nutrition worth it? Is the extra activity I'm going to have to put in to have a little more calorie burn worth it? The juice might not be worth the squeeze. And if you are, healthy at this weight, if you're confident at this weight, and it's really just a mindset thing, thinking like, I'm going to be happier, I'm going to be better when I'm at this lower weight, it might not be worth it.
Yeah.
Personally speaking, like, I'm definitely not the leanest that I would like to be right now, but I'm at a place where I know the trade-offs that I would have to make on a day-to-day basis aren't worth it to me to be 5 pounds lighter and to have more definition in my abs and look better with my shirt off. It's not worth it. I would rather be able at 5 pounds heavier, basically where I'm at right now, and be able to not worry about having 4th of July food with friends tomorrow. And I don't need to worry about the trade-off. The trade-off's not worth it to me. Exactly. So consider that if you're in this place. And that's where she is right now.
Yeah, and that's why it's hard to chase a number on a scale versus all of these things like body composition, health markers, ability, confidence, comfort, all those things.
Yeah. And then I guess the last thing I'll say is everybody's going to look different at different body weights. Everybody has different body types. So it can be tempting to compare yourself at your weight to somebody else who has a different body type. And it's also easy,
especially at your height, not at your weight, but two people of the same height can have completely different body types. So at different body weights, they can look completely different.
And try not to compare your progress or where you're at now to an older version of yourself too, because I know this person is doing amazing with their training and they're building a significant amount of muscle. Yeah. Their body composition is changing. And, if they stay on the course of the nutrition principles that have got them this far and they continue to build muscle and strength, their body composition is just going to continue to change. And they're probably just going to like what they see in the reflection in the mirror, regardless of what's going on with the number on the scale.
Yeah.
So there we go.
All right. I switched to working out in the morning because of my work schedule. I don't feel as strong, but I can be more consistent. Is it better to work out in the morning and be more consistent, or work out in the afternoon when I feel stronger, but I'm less consistent? The age-old question.
Is it better to work out in the morning, or is it better to work out in the afternoon?
Yes.
I think our default answer for this question always, and we'll get into some nuance here of why it matters, but is always the best time to work out is whenever you can be the most consistent.
And I think we just answered the question right there. Yeah. For this person in this particular situation, in the morning.
When's the best time of day to go for a walk? Whenever you can fit it in. When's the best time of day to meal prep? Whenever you can. When's the best time to take your creatine? Whenever you be the most consistent.
Yeah. And I would say that changing your workout schedule from I work out in the afternoon to I work out in the morning will take some growing pains. So it could be a short amount of time that they're going to go through where they do feel a little bit weaker in the morning. They don't have as much energy and all those things. And it could be something that they definitely get used to over time. So if they were asking me for advice, I would say continue with your morning workouts, continue with that consistency, and your body will adapt to that schedule. And you won't feel weak and lethargic and stuff in the morning. And as soon as you get going, you're gonna be killing it.
And pay extra attention to the thing that sets you up for success in the morning, which is getting to bed at night.
Yeah.
You know, be willing to make a little bit of sacrifice on the end of your day to make you have more energy when you do wake up early in the morning. The problem with going about this the other way and, you know, just sticking with working out in the afternoon when you feel more energized and feel more strong, but you're potentially less consistent. Let's say you're working out 4 times a week and every other week you miss one workout. You know, you've already cut your training volume down by 25% in the week that you missed just a single workout because of your challenging schedule. And that's a significant cut to your training. If you miss 2 out of your 4, you're at 50% consistency for that week. And accumulate that over a month, and you're going to see a significant reduction in your progress.
Yeah.
And that's why even subpar workouts in the morning that are consistent will always help you make more progress over the long run, because you're actually getting the volume in versus just trying to get it in when you might not be as consistent in the afternoon.
Another thing to do here is to play with the different ways that you're going to be fueling yourself to prepare yourself to get ready to work out in the morning.
Yeah.
Because I know that like different people, that's another thing that just takes time to get used to, is maybe like you're not used to eating something that early in the morning, or you're not used to working out with like after, because usually if you're working out in the morning, you usually have to like eat fairly early and then work out pretty quickly after you've just eaten something. Because I don't like to go into the gym with a completely empty stomach. So you're going to want something on your stomach. So working with that too, and the different ways that you're going to fuel yourself and what you're going to eat and how it's going to sit is going to be another factor to play with as you get used to this. But I would just, if you can, I would just continue to like play with the different variables and stay with it to keep that consistency.
That's a good suggestion. I mean, somebody like this might be a good candidate for getting some liquid calories in the morning if they don't like to, you know, feel like they're digesting food.
Something with carbs, but like a protein shake with a banana or something like that. Something where you can, something easily digestible, but that you can get down in your stomach
or
on
a
the
little
way
apple
to the
juice,
gym.
a little orange juice, something like that.
Even playing with like having a little caffeine or some coffee first thing in the morning,
or
as you're getting like literally as you're getting dressed and stuff, ready to go to the gym, start to get that caffeine in.
I like that.
All right,
easy one.
I do like we've talked about this a lot, but like when I owned the gym, like the most consistent class was the early morning class, and I know that like people who then joined in, I could feel the struggles early on, and then they were like one of the crew, you know. So it definitely is something that you just have to kind of go through.
It just feels so good to be at 7 o'clock in the morning and you've already done your workout for the entire day, and the whole day is yours. You started off with a great thing, and it's all uphill from here.
Yeah. Any days that we get up, like if we have a stacked full day, we will get up before breakfast and get our workout in, which we don't normally do. We're pretty lucky that we like literally are staying in our office in our gym right now. We have a pretty lenient workout schedule, but when we do have to get it done in the morning, I feel so good. I feel like I get the longest day. It's like a gift. I'm like, why don't I do this every day? Like All right. Third question. I have a hard time squatting to full depth. Any tips? Great question.
Yep. Why don't we define what full depth is?
Full depth is where you squat, where you take the crease of your hips. We're all about the like body parts today. Take the crease of your hips, and when you're squatted down, it's at the level or just below the level of where your knee is.
Your bent hip is lower than your lower than your bent knee.
Let's talk about why real quick.
All right, let's talk about it.
Because I think that this can be a topic for debate sometimes of why do we need to squat that low. And if you just mimic the motion right now, if you just squat down just a little bit and you hold yourself in that position, you're going to feel some pressure on your knees after just a little bit, kind of discomfort. If you just like lower your hips down, but don't go all the way to full depth, you're going to feel that your knees are like taking the brunt of this force. But if you get yourself into that full depth position, you're going to realize that the knees are no longer taking the force on this one.
You've shifted it to your
posterior chain. And that's what we want to be working when we're squatting, your glutes, your hamstrings. And so if we can hit that full depth every time we squat, these are the muscles that we're going to be growing. And our knees are just going to be like there to support us along, to bend, essentially. We don't want to be using our knees to change directions and to stand up out of that squat. And that is why we always drive people to squat to full depth.
Especially if your goal is like anything where you you want to get your butt bigger, you're looking for some butt hypertrophy, maximal hypertrophy gains are made when a muscle is stretched to its fullest extent. And that's what happens in the deepest part of a squat is your glute is under that big stretch. So if you're only partially squatting, you can forget about growing your peach emoji.
But it's a fight sometimes to have this conversation with people that think like, I don't want to hurt my knees, so I don't want to squat to full depth. And it's
counterintuitive.
It's counterintuitive to what you're actually doing. But okay, so now we've defined what full depth is.
Let's talk about some of the challenges of why people struggle to hit full depth with a squat. Sometimes it's mental, but a lot of times it really is physical because we all have different limb lengths. Like the distance from our hip to our knee might be really long. We might have a short shin. We might have a super long torso. And this stuff matters. The fact is that shorter people have an easier time squatting to full depth. Tall people, I mean, think about, our clients and people you coach in the gym. There weren't a lot of short people struggling to get depth on a squat. It's always the tall people with long femurs, people with long torsos. It's just the way that we're built that can make it more challenging. I don't suffer from that. You do. You have very long femurs. So we have to make some adjustments because it definitely can still happen. You still can squat to full depth. With the right mindset and the right coaching cues, you too can squat to full depth.
We went to our starting strength seminar and like they were trying to help me with my squat. I got like picked on like crazy there because I have obviously an awkward body type in their eyes, both for my bench press and my squat. But they were like, "You have some long ass legs. You are gonna have to like." What did he say?
I can't repeat it on this podcast, but. He basically said you are going to have to lean over way more than you want to.
What he was saying was basically because I have very long femurs that like he's like you're going to have to lean your chest forward way more than you want to get that full depth squat that they were looking for.
Because if you didn't and you went to squat down, what was going to happen was your chest was going to stay upright, which would mean that your butt would be more right underneath your chest and your knees would have to go really far forward. And I don't know if you've ever tried to squat to full depth by shooting your knees forward, but you get to this point where you just can't go any lower. You'll fall over forward. You feel all jammed up. So if you're tall, you have long femurs, you need to send your hips back more, lean over way more. And then you also have to create more space for those long femurs by pointing your toes out a little bit.
Hang on, let's put this in something people can actually use. Okay, so number one, you're going to start with your stance. Whenever you take your stance, that's the most important piece of this. Is everything starts, from your stance, is so that your feet are going to be shoulder width apart. That means like your heels are going to be planted around where your shoulders are. So you can kind of like figure that out just by looking down. And then instead of one of the most common mistakes we see people make, and this prevents people from squatting too low, is people stand with their feet straight ahead. So we want to stand with our feet at about 30 degrees pointed out. And
maybe
what that's going to
really
do is going to help us create room with our hips for us to descend, because it's going to push our knees out, which is going to push our quads out, and everything. So we're going to make sure that's going to give us more room to descend into that squat. So first thing, we've got our stance. We've got shoulder width stance, feet, toes slightly pointed out. And then when we initiate our squat, the second most common thing that we see is like a novice squatter will initiate by bending at the knees, like thinking like I'm going to gently guide myself down, like if I was going below this table like that. That's not what we want. And the chest stays straight up. That's not what we want. We want to send our hips back. So I always tell people to like, first thing you can do is put a target behind you if you need to practice this, but reach back toward a target.
Like a chair.
Yeah, like a chair, like you're sitting back in a chair. So instead of sending our knees forward, we're going to send our hips back. So that's the second piece, is get used to sending your hips back versus your knees forward. And then the third piece is that chest angle. We don't want to continue to like fight and try to keep our chest like straight up as we squat. We want to allow ourselves to like bend forward and then to stand back up.
Yep. You did a much better job of running through the progression than me just like telling all the things at once.
Okay, so concrete tips to take away is, first of all, make sure you have your proper squat stance. Second of all, make sure your toes are pointed out so that as you squat, your knees track in line with your toes. We never want our knees on the inside of that big toe. That's a very dangerous position for your knees. So push the knees out. And if you're like feeling like you're doing everything and you're like, I'm still having trouble, one of the most common things we tell people when they're like, push your knees out more. that's really going to help you get down into that depth. Like I said, it's going to create space for your hips to actually descend.
Yeah. I would say in most people, there's not any sort of mobility restriction in their knees or hips that's preventing them from reaching full depth once they get this, position and this track that you're trying to guide them on to get down. But sometimes people run into restriction with how much their ankle will flex. Basically, they run out of ankle flexion as they get down to the bottom of the squat. So this is where wearing a weightlifting shoe can help you out, because it elevates your heel, which eliminates how much your ankle has to flex at the bottom of the squat too. So you can experiment with this. Don't recommend doing this with any significant amount of weight, but put your heels up on like a 5 or 10 pound plate to simulate using.
More like a 5 pound or just like a small piece of wood. Something.
I'm talking about a metal plate, not a bumper plate.
Yeah.
We're only looking for like 1/2 inch, 3/4 inches of heel elevation to eliminate that much ankle flexion.
And that would mimic like if you were wearing a pair of weightlifting shoes.
Exactly.
But so if you feel like you're getting the stance right, the toes are pointed out, the knees are shooting out, you're sending your hips back. If you're still struggling, I would first set up a target to make sure that you're really pushing your hips back enough. And the second thing I would do is what he was saying would be to elevate your heels a little bit, and also pay attention to what shoes you're wearing. Don't wear things like running shoes, even though those appear to have a bigger heel. They also have a lot of give and squish to them. So if you're starting squatting especially with weight, don't wear a running shoe, because that is not going to give you any stability in your foot. Your foot's going to kind of like bend. You don't want any kind of movement in your body when you're squatting with weight. So we don't want our feet like either going up on our toes or heels, and we definitely don't want our feet like going like left and right in our shoes as we're squatting. Yeah,
if you're serious about this, get some appropriate weightlifting shoes.
Yeah.
They're going to cost you $150 when you buy them, but then you'll have them. I'm using mine from 2012.
Yeah, I mean, you will have to buy basically like one pair of these shoes, probably for most of your career, unless you get really good serious.
You can deadlift in them. You can overhead press in them. I wouldn't recommend running or jumping in them, but get you some good weightlifting shoes.
All right. Did we crush that one?
We crushed that one. All right. So this last one is not really a question, but it's something that came up on our call with Haley this week. She brought to our attention this trend that's going on social media, where there's these cortisol coaches out there that are, telling you that your chronically elevated cortisol is preventing you from losing weight, making you gain weight. Oh, and by the way, I also have this cortisol suppressing supplement drink that I can sell you. I think they call it Happy Juice, which is going to take away all your woes, which is going to make the fat melt off your body. All you have to do is pay $99 to join into my multi-level thing, and then you too can sell Happy Juice to other people. And I don't want to go too deep into my hate, is that too strong of a word, for like people stepping outside of the scope of what they should be doing and things that they should be talking about and advising on, especially when it comes to social media. But we have doctors and we have medical professionals that have devoted their life to understanding hormones, to helping people regulate their hormones. And it's not the place of an Instagram influencer to take the place of an endocrinologist. So in general, don't take hormonal advice from people on social media. It's way outside of their scope, and I'll just leave it at that. Let's talk a little bit about cortisol.
Okay.
It's a naturally occurring hormone in the body. It helps you feel awake in the morning. It goes down at night, helps you fall asleep because it's suppressed. It's a stress hormone. And because it's a stress hormone, it gets thought about as like, oh man, well, like obviously stress prevents you from losing weight. If I have cortisol in my system, I'm not going to be able to lose weight because it's stressing me out and it's just blocking all my fat loss. What we don't want is chronically elevated cortisol. And doctors have tests to find out if you have chronically elevated cortisol. You just can't go around in your life and have this low level amount of stress with all your obligations with work and family and your business and finances and all that stuff and assume that you have chronically elevated cortisol that's doing anything negative to you. You need to go to a doctor and get tested. They're going to take multiple data points, like actually find out if it's staying chronically elevated. So there are ways to find out that, what's actually going on without just thinking you need to drink this Happy Juice. So you don't want to have chronically elevated cortisol, but even if you did, having elevated cortisol chronically doesn't necessarily prevent you from losing weight. However, think about the lifestyle circumstances for somebody who has high levels of stress all the time, maybe has elevated levels of cortisol. What's going on in their life? They're stressed out. How do we typically cope with stress? Well, some people don't eat at all, but a lot of people turn to highly processed foods or other coping mechanisms that don't exactly line up with maintaining a healthy body weight.
Or when we do eat, we're rushed and we're not preparing foods for ourselves and things like that. We're eating at restaurants more, grabbing fast food, grabbing junk.
So it's not that the cortisol itself is causing weight gain or preventing weight loss, but it sets you up for a set of circumstances that sure will make it really challenging. Like you said, like when was the last time you felt really stressed out and like pounded one of those giant boxes of spinach because you were so stressed out? Probably not. But it wouldn't be uncommon for people to like demolish an entire bag of chips when they're stressed out and realize they just ate 2,000 calories worth of chips because they were stressed. So it's kind of like thinking, what are you laughing about?
Said demolished one of those.
Oh my gosh! I ate the entire pound of spinach.
You might have some stomach stuff going on. But.
Yeah, you definitely would, and that'll stress you out too. But yeah, so okay. I don't want to be insensitive to the fact that the stress is real. It really is real. But the solution to your cortisol preventing weight loss is that you need to find healthier coping mechanisms for the stress that don't involve you eating extra calories. Picture the contestants on the show alone. Can you picture a more stressful environment than being dropped off in the woods, having to provide for yourself, build your own shelter within the first 24 hours?
You have nothing.
Can you imagine how stressed out those people, what their
being afraid to sleep in the woods?
They're getting adrenaline rushes from seeing a bear, and then their cortisol stays elevated because they're looking over their shoulder every 5 seconds. Why aren't these people gaining weight? Why are they losing significant amounts of weight over the course of the show? Because there's no food around. They're stressed out, but they have no access to the calories that we do in our modern food environment. So we turn to those unhealthy coping mechanisms, which often involve food. And that's the thing that's making us not be able to lose weight. Not the fact that we are stressed, not the fact that we have elevated levels of cortisol, but we act on those things with unhealthy coping mechanisms that involve calories.
It's honestly scary to think that we could not have elevated cortisol, just, living a life that we think, oh, I'm super stressed all the time. And you take something that's potentially like messing with your hormones, messing with the natural levels that your body is providing, and you like mess yourself up. I would think I would be super scared to take something like that, not knowing what I was doing just because I saw it on the gram.
It doesn't make sense to me. Like I said, we have doctors for these things, and if you don't provide yourself access to the things that actually cause weight gain, then you can just focus that energy on healthy coping mechanisms for stress, and you'll be better off in the long run. If you have any questions on that, email blakely@digitalbarbell.com. All right, that's all we got time for today. We got to go check our fireworks stash and see if we need to get some of those poppers.
Be careful out there, guys.
Yeah. All right, hope you guys enjoyed this. If you ever want to get a question in the queue for a Q&A podcast, just send us a message on Instagram and we'll save it. See ya.